Hello and welcome. I am Dr. Jack, and for this video I will be talking about my experiences having been born and raised in the United States of America in regards to racism, the current state of things with the anti-Asian hate that we are seeing all across the country, mainly in our larger cities, and end with a call to action in regards to what each of us can do to ultimately make the world a better place. So join me as we take a deeper dive into all of these topics. So this is a video I've been thinking about doing for quite some time now, for many weeks actually. And each time I think I'm gonna do it, I ultimately don't do it, and for various reasons that I'll get into the details here. But one of them is that it's a little bit too personal. Being born in the United States and being raised here, I have experienced a lot of racism myself that I'll get into, but also, it just evoked a lot of emotions, emotions such as anger initially, followed by this very deep sense of sadness. And, I've done, I forgot how many, 30 some videos now, and this is the one video that's made me lose some sleep. And it's because I've been just trying to think about how to basically approach this topic. So this is just kind of my way of trying to spread awareness. So in watching everything that's been going on, it really kind of brings me back to my childhood. So a few things about my childhood and upbringing is that I was born in the United States, and up until middle school, a typical classroom that I was in would be the majority of African American, a few Caucasians, and then there was me. And then we moved, and I started middle school in a small town in North Carolina, and basically from there on it was majority Caucasians, a few African Americans, and then me. And so I've grown up with quite a bit of racism directed towards me throughout my entire life, and it came from equally blacks and whites. So when I was young and dumb and full of testosterone, I used to get into fights and physical altercations over these remarks. But, I'll never forget something my dad told me one time. We were at a gas station, and I remember my little sister coming out. At that time, she might have been 11 years old or something like that. And she was very, very upset. And apparently this grown man, this adult, had made some racist remark towards her, and it had upset her. And the guy came out, and I asked her to point him out to me. And I remember basically, my dad knew what was up and grabbed me and my brother and threw us into the van, and off we went. And, I remember being angry that he wouldn't let me confront the guy after he made my sister so upset. And I'll never forget what he told me. He told me that, look, you can't fight everybody, and no matter how hard you try. And this is very, very true. I do believe that you can educate everyone, and you can only educate people by bringing awareness and basically spreading the word. However, as I've gotten older and, became a family man and sort of settled down, and all of this seems sort of a distant past, until recently with all the events that have been basically going on. However, it's not completely gone. Even as a doctor inside of my clinic, there's still racism that goes on. And, I've had patients that would, the staff would come up to me afterward and tell me after I left the room, the patient made a ton of racist remarks towards me. And I've had people call in and want to be seen by our clinic, but they said that they will see anyone except an Asian doctor. And so even at this point in my life, their racism is still, very much prevalent. And so growing up, I just figured this was the way of the world and the way things were. And so as I've gotten older and I share these stories with various other people, one thing that amazes me is how amazed they are, or how shocked they are that, I've had these experiences growing up. And it's actually that shock and amazement by so many people is sort of yet another reason why I wanted to do this video, and that is to bring awareness. You see, I consider myself very fortunate, actually. I consider myself fortunate because of the fact that I've had the luxury of growing up in two fantastic cultures. There's the Asian culture, and then there's the American culture, hence Asian American, right? I have found that one of the reasons I was hesitant to do this video was because of the Asian culture aspect of it. The Asian culture in regards to where it is of the mindset to basically, stay under the radar, don't make a fuss, don't be confrontational, and basically just keep your head down and move along. As an Asian American, I feel that no longer can we sit down and be silent and not speak up anymore. So in 2020, anti-Asian attacks actually have gone up by over 150%. And this is during a pandemic when everybody was basically at home. And any attacks against other minorities have actually gone down 7% in the United States during that same time period. And this mainly occurs inside of major cities such as New York, LA, and Boston. And as far as prevalence is in that order. And actually the NYPD database shows that within New York, the actual number is that it's gone up 1,900% since the pandemic started. You see, by not speaking up and not making a fuss of things and just putting your head down, trying to ignore things, we basically allow things to even occur in mainstream media, such as the clip that I'm about to run. And this clip, I'll let Johnny Chang basically do the commentary here. He's a comedian. And by the way, everything is linked down below in regards to where I got all these videos. But he does his reaction to this douchebag reporter. And it's just amazing that this video, or this was actually on television in mainstream media, not but a few years ago. So check it out.
Am I supposed to bow to say hello?
你好，你好。
I like these watches. Are they hot?
JC Penney 398.
Do you know karate?
Yeah, I know.
Hit my hand. Is it the year of the dragon?
No, it's actually the year of go yourself. What the hell was that? How was that on the news? In fact, how was that even on TV?
Donald Trump beating up on China at the debate. How does that make you feel?
Speak! Why don't you speak?
Asshole, they don't speak English. That's why they're silent. Easy to make fun of someone when they can't respond. I'll show you. Why do you look like a guy who carries around a pack of roofies just in case? Is it hard to fit Bill O'Reilly's entire scrotum in your mouth?
As an Asian American, we see these sorts of things all the time within movies, commercials, and the mainstream media. And by not saying anything, it's sort of become the norm, and people think that it's okay. And this type of discrimination has been ongoing the entire time. It's just that no one really talks about it. And, you see it in things like job discrimination. And there was a study done that showed that Asian Americans actually are the least likely of minorities to be promoted at work. And also within the educational system, where we find that more and more the system is basically being built to make it more difficult for Asian Americans to get into higher education programs and things like that. So this underlying discrimination has always been there. And it basically took a pandemic as well as rhetoric and blaming of the pandemic on Chinese everywhere, even Chinese American. And this language that is used actually isn't just by the former president. If you look back when the pandemic first started, pretty much every major news outlet was calling the COVID virus the Chinese flu or the Chinese pandemic. It was basically rampant everywhere. So another repercussion of being silent is that our politicians will continue to consider us statistically insignificant. And you understand more about what that means later on in the video. And also our justice system will continue to fail us like it did Vincent Chin back in 1982. For those of you who don't know, Vincent Chin, he was getting married and he was out on his bachelor party. And this was set during 1982 when the Japanese auto industry essentially was overtaking the United States auto industry, and there were many layoffs and very sort of disgruntled employees. Vincent Chin, who was not Japanese, but the two individuals who worked in the auto industry and were laid off thought he was, directed racist remarks. This basically culminated into a altercation and fight outside, and they took a baseball bat to him and they beat him to death. And what was amazing about all this was the fact that these two individuals, after having killed Vincent Chin, were given $3,000 fines and 3 years of probation. They didn't even go to prison. And you're seeing these types of injustices currently by the people that are committing these types of atrocities and attacking Asians whenever they see them. Many of them are actually not getting prosecuted, and they're using the excuse of, oh, well, the person was wearing a mask, and there's no way the person could have told that they were Asian. Really? Not Asian. Asian. Not Asian. Asian. Not Asian. Asian. Not Asian. Asian. So next what I'm going to do is basically play a montage of videos that I went on the internet, and this is just a small sampling of all the videos that are on the internet of various Asian attacks that have occurred since the pandemic has started.
Racism in the time of pandemic. A young woman wearing a mask is attacked in a subway station.
Come here, sanitize your Come here.
An elderly woman is chased by a bully trying to squirt hand sanitizer on her.
He just spit out to me and then fall on my face here.
He didn't attack anyone. He could have fought back, and I believe there was a reason for that.
16-year-old Vanessa Lamb says that mid-March day, she also got pushed. A witness saw and helped.
If we don't speak up, people will be emboldened to do these senseless acts.
And so this man then came up to her here in Astor Place and asked her about a sign that she was holding. He then took it from her. He tried to kind of cram it into a garbage can, but then he ended up putting it on the ground, stomping on it. Police say then the woman asked why he was doing this. Then they punched her twice, closed fist, hit her hard.
My name is Frederick Douglass Smith.
Lee said this customer starts approaching her again in a violent manner, blurting out not just a name, but what he said was his social security number and date of birth, even daring police to come after him.
Can you help me, please? This is getting really scary.
Nobody ain't gonna help you. Police can't do in front of me.
The young man came back at least 3 times to throw things into our foyer and leave not only a racist note, but a racist mask.
What was shocking was these individuals kept on following us, then taunting us, saying coronavirus or COVID-19.
What happened to Yang is one of over 2,800 hate incidents reported against Asian Americans across the country since the pandemic started 7 months ago. A nearly 845% increase compared to all the reported cases in the last 3 years combined.
What are you doing in this country?
What am I doing in this country?
Oh, you look at this
What am I doing in this country?
Yeah.
What am I doing in this country? I'm an American citizen.
Yeah, about 2 hours ago, we spoke exclusively with the Asian woman who attacked her attacker in San Francisco earlier today. This comes after several violent encounters in the city and Oakland just yesterday targeting Asians.
Said a man yelled racial insults and then punched him multiple times, knocking him to the ground on March 13th at Ocean and Plymouth Avenues. He was wearing this veteran's hat at the time.
And when he noticed me, he got aggressive and charged across the street. Go back where you came from. You caused this problem. He was referring to COVID. And do you want to get hurt? You're not a veteran. I'm a veteran.
Last July, an 89-year-old grandmother in Brooklyn was lit on fire. In that attack, and in so many others, at the outset of the investigations, police said no racial slurs were hurled, so hate crime charges were ruled out.
Police identified the suspect as 38-year-old Brandon Elliott. Elliott was already on lifetime parole for murdering his mother. The NYPD's hate crimes force had been looking for the assailant since Monday afternoon after a man punched and kicked a 65-year-old woman, knocked her to the ground, and stamped at least 3 times on her head. He also made anti-Asian statements. Videos posted on social media showed witnesses at the scene did not try to protect her, and one man shut the door of a nearby building while the attacker casually walked away.
A wave of violent, unprovoked attacks against Asian Americans consuming the city of New York. A 56-year-old man in Manhattan this week pummeled for no apparent reason. A man riding the subway sliced across his face from cheek to cheek. A woman viciously shoved in Queens. A 71-year-old woman punched in her face in Chinatown. A 36-year-old man stabbed in the back, now fighting to stay alive.
This is not a joke. I have seen this DA put people and street vendors in jail for both stuff, but now when the Asian gets attacked for no good reasons, he decided not to prosecute.
One incident caught on cell phone made headlines across the state. A Northridge family hosting a birthday dinner at a restaurant for their grandmother when this man invoked President Trump.
Trump's gonna you. You need to leave.
Americans said we don't want you here. That's why we elected President Trump.
Chinese virus. I can name Kung Flu.
The attack was one of several against elderly Asians and Asian Americans in California's Bay Area over the past 2 months. But while his death has galvanized the community, it's his life that his daughter and son-in-law want to honor.
Happy birthday, dear grandpa. He's a family man, gentleman. He's taking care of our family.
The pain still raw for his daughter Montage, who sat at her father's bedside as he lay dying.
He never wake up again, bleeding on his brain.
What did you say to him when you got to see him in the hospital?
Dad, wake up. I want him to stay alive and wake up and come and see me again. But he never wake up again, and I pray for him.
So the emotions you feel right now after watching that montage of videos is essentially how every Asian American feels right now. They're scared in their house during a time of a pandemic. They're afraid to leave their house to go get medical care, afraid to go down to the grocery store. They're afraid to go and get their vaccination. They're living a life of fear. I want to close by saying that these are by far very, very trying times for Asian Americans. But this too shall pass. Things will get better. However, they will get better only if we get involved, only if we speak up, only if we bring awareness. Silence is no longer an option. And if you're going out in public, especially if you're an Asian American female, you're over 2 times more likely to be assaulted or harassed. And also if you are an Asian American elderly person, you're also more likely to be attacked. So don't go about things by yourself, bring others with you, because if you pay attention to these videos, these cowards are basically singling out individuals, and they're typically female or the elderly, the most vulnerable populations out there. And so take the appropriate measures to be safe. Take a self-defense class, learn how to defend yourself. Be aware of your surroundings. When you're out in public, take your eyes off that smartphone. You gotta be aware of what's going on around you and of any suspicious looking characters. And this goes for everyone. If you see someone getting harassed, if you see someone getting assaulted, say something, do something. Stand up to these cowards. It is this silence that emboldens these individuals. So I hope you found this video informative, and if you did, my call to action is to ask you to share this video and to have this conversation with others. Only by bringing awareness and having an open discussion will we be able to break down these barriers that create xenophobia and racism and get on with our lives to make the world a better place. So I will end this video with a clip from Daniel Dae Kim, the actor. It is his statement to Congress about all of the anti-Asian hate that is going on. It's really powerful stuff. Please watch it through till the end. But before I leave you, I just want to say some parting words here. I want to say that every immigrant family that comes to the United States of America is here to pursue the American dream. We are made up of a nation of immigrants, and in my opinion, it is our greatest strength here. We are here, we are not leaving, because it is our home. So when someone says something like, hey, why don't you go home or go back where you came from? Well, that's like you coming into my house and telling me to go home. I am home. Where are you? And I mean, where are you in the sense of morally? Where are you in the sense of, are you happy with your decisions in life? Are you happy with your actions? Are you making the world a better place? I think those are really important questions to ask ourselves every single day. So till next time, take care, stay safe. Bye-bye. Pura Vida.
Vicharatana Pakdi, murdered. Pak Ho, murdered. Noel Quintana, face slashed with a blade from ear to ear. An 89-year-old woman set on fire. Tadataka Ono, a professional jazz pianist beaten so badly he can no longer play piano. These are only a few of the 3,800 reported incidents since last March. I was speaking to a pollster during the recent elections, and I asked him why, when I see polling results broken down by race, do I so rarely see Asian Americans as a separate category? He heard my question, he looked me dead in the eye, and he said, because Asian Americans are considered statistically insignificant. Statistically insignificant. Now, all of you listening to me here by virtue of your own elections are more familiar with the intricacies of polling than I am, so undoubtedly, you already know what this means. Statistically insignificant literally means we don't matter. We as Asian Americans have come to this country because we believe in the American dream. Many of us have succeeded, and some of us are even the frontline healthcare workers upon whom we've all come to depend during this terrible pandemic. But many of us are struggling too. In fact, the wealth disparity between the richest Asian Americans and the poorest is the largest of any ethnic group in America. In New York, Asian Americans have a higher poverty rate than any other minority group, where fully 1 in 4 are living below the poverty line. And poverty rates among Asian American seniors are much higher than the national average. That's something to consider as we watch the most vulnerable in our community get taunted, pushed, slashed, and murdered. Despite this wide disparity of experiences, we continue to be tagged the model minority. We simply cannot continue to live with the myth that the most successful of us represent the totality of us. So we know the hurdles we face. The question for us here is, what can we do about them? One of the places that starts is with education. Let's teach them everything that Professor Lee so eloquently highlighted for us, including celebrating the fact that the most decorated combat unit in US military history was the 442nd Combat Team, a unit in World War II made up entirely of Asian Americans. Now, these are not moments in Asian American history. This is American history. When we are erased from our history books, we are made invisible. And the result, to quote Congresswoman Meng, is that we are perpetually made to feel like foreigners in our own country. Include our stories because they matter. We must also empower our local community organizers by directing funds to areas that have been historically impoverished, not just for the benefit of the AAPI community, but for the benefit of all communities living there, most of whom are non-white. It's no wonder that there's historically been tension among racial groups when the thing they have most in common is poverty and lack of access to services. Now, I'm not naive enough to think that I'm going to convince all of you to stand up for us. Trust me, I've seen your voting records. But I am speaking to those to whom humanity still matters. In closing, let me just say that there are several moments in a country's history that chart its course indelibly for the future. For Asian Americans, that moment is now. What happens right now and over the course of the coming months will send a message for generations to come as to whether we matter. Whether the country we call home chooses to erase us or include us, dismiss us or respect us, invisibilize us or see us. Because you may consider us statistically insignificant now, but one more fact that has no alternative is that we are the fastest growing racial demographic in the country. We are 23 million strong. We are united, and we are waking up. Thank you.